That's how
That
I things do.
gives a sense of freedom, a sense of spice, a sense of delusion. And we are live here to chat about all of the TV that we've watched for the past couple weeks outside of the Olympics. That's over. We're past that. That was lovely. Now we are entering really the most wonderful time of the year. And I think Carey and Kate, you'll agree with me. And that is the approach of fall TV season. We've got a ton of exciting stuff already starting to release and a lot that's going to be coming in the next few weeks. We talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. We are, well, you know this trio. We are very excited for Only Murders in the Building, as I assume anybody who has ever laid eyes on it is as well. Agatha All Along, I know, is pretty top of our list. But there's just been other things that have been plugged that have come out and unfortunately that have been canceled. And with that, I turn it over to Kate and Carey to talk us through the news.
Just taking the wind out of my sails
I'm
right
so
at the
sorry.
top. Yeah. So on the cancellation front, we have the show I wouldn't shut up about, My Lady Jane. I have strong feelings about it. I've kind of avoided researching exactly the conversation just because I don't want to get mad. But there have been kind of just rumors from what I have heard about it being poorly rated on the Nelsons because it didn't make top 10, which I feel is a really, really stringent threshold that you have to make during the Olympic season, during the time
Right.
where the HBO is putting on a show. Okay, sure. I think a lot of it's on their own fault with poor marketing, and I'll kind of just leave it there. It's really disappointing that it's been canceled. I would have loved a second season. Oh well. But we do actually have some Bridgerton news. So season 4 has officially announced. I don't have the article pulled up and I have completely forgotten her name, but she seems like a lovely actress, beautiful.
Absolutely.
Will play Benedict's love interest. We talked previously about it probably or possibly not being a woman and then completely changing his story. I will throw it out there. They might be pushing it for a beard situation,
Okay, yeah.
a lavender marriage situation,
Yeah.
and that's where I always kind of assumed if they went a different way that that would be how they would have to work it anyway,
Mhm.
based on the social rules they have set up within the context of the show. But that's my little insight, my little theory.
I really like that theory because I'll say, and this isn't really a spoiler, the book has been out for years, but this book that we're approaching, Benedict's, is a very Cinderella type story. It's a rags to riches. She needs money, he has money. They also happen to be young and hot. They live happily ever after. That's the story. Sorry if that's spoilers for the story of Cinderella. And in this particular situation, if there's also the complexity of he needs a beard of sorts, and or he just needs to marry a woman, I think they've established him as bi loosely, without saying as much. But regardless of his,
Hmm.
potential bi status, I don't know. He needs to marry a woman in this society. If that is the case, if that's the direction they go, then she could serve as that. And in this, one of the fundamental aspects of her character is that she's like destitute and broke. He has money. This could be like semi transactional. Um, we'll see. Her name is Yaren Ha. I might be pronouncing that incorrectly. I just pulled it up from a tweet. I've never seen her in anything before, but I know Bridgerton likes to cast folks who don't have like a huge extensive, for their, leading lady or um, love interest of the season or whatever, who don't have like huge extensive background that we know them from, or at least that's what they've done so far. So that's in keeping here. She's not brand new to the scene, but she's not like a household name. Um, but I'm excited. It's interesting because there's sort of, I can get pulled two directions with this, and that I really I wanted a gay love story, right? I think a lot of folks watching this did, and we've already had 3 seasons of the heterosexuals. Maybe we can shake things up a bit, whatever. But at the same time, I'm not going to be the person who's sitting here being like, they cast a woman and I wanted a man. Like, I never actually want to see more men on screen at the end of the day. So that, it's a win win or lose lose, depending on how you see it. We'll see how it goes. Eloise is our only hope, but they can't actually make Eloise straight. They can give her a male love interest, but I'm sorry, she is canonically into women, and you can't convince me otherwise. I will simply reject canon otherwise.
Yeah.
Maybe she goes for Eloise instead.
Maybe she does, or maybe her stepmother does. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, in other news, with upcoming shows, I've been looking at the fall shows that have been announced, the releases, the pilots that we're going to see, and exactly one has caught my attention, and that is called High Potential. It is. It seems to be a play on like the case of the week type thing, a cop assistant, a rogue cop assistant type thing. Something that seems very mid 2000s dated and has already, kind of been played out, except for the fact that the leading lady is the lady who led the Comedy of the Mick and more, probably well known, of 5 billion seasons. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. She is possibly, in my opinion, one of the best female comedic actresses currently on TV, and therefore I'm really excited to see what she does with a cop procedural. The setup is interesting, but it should be, essentially irreverent comedic female character solving cases that I'm not going to care about the case, and that one I'll be seated for. I'm also excited for the very first season of The Golden Bachelorette. Now, this is going to be worse than The Golden Bachelor, because with The Golden Bachelor, we had one bachelor and a bunch of the most beautiful, hilarious, accomplished, talented women you've ever seen in your entire life. And they carried the show. They had all of these amazing friendships. They were funny. They were good on TV, whatever. I don't know how well we're going to do with The Golden Bachelorette, where we have one woman and a bunch of men. I'm biased, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe these men will step up to the plate and impress us. We've seen their cast bios; those have been released, and they all, look like lovely, accomplished folks as well. But it's just, are they going to be as funny? Are they going to be as good on screen? I don't know. We'll see. So looking forward to The Golden Bachelorette very much. And I hope they prove me and my general misandry wrong. I have a question for you guys as my last bit of news. Have you been following the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, I think is his last name, drama? And do you have any thoughts on it? And
I
while
have
you're thinking
been
about it, I'll
forcibly
shout out in the
exposed.
chat. Stormy says she hadn't heard of My Lady Jane until it was canceled, but she's very sorry that it was canceled, Kate. And she also says she's potentially falling out of Bridgerton. The couple's coming up. She may not be as invested in, but she might feel differently in 2 years when the season comes out. Good observation. All right, Kate. Tossing it over to you for the Blake and Justin take.
Um, that movie was always gonna be kind of a weird one for me. I
Mhm.
have no issue if you like Colleen Hoover.
Yeah.
Geez, her last name escaped me for a second. I've just always been kind of icked out by the fact that these are basically dramas that explore domestic violence,
Mhm.
and they're marketed very much as romance novels. I've never liked that premise. So when the marketing started coming out for the movie, I wasn't terribly surprised that it had similar markings of we're burying the lead of what this movie's actually about.
Mhm.
But then the drama surrounding it is so interesting because Justin Baldoni is one of the stars, and the director, and Blake Lively is the producer and one of the stars, and they clearly do not get along.
Mhm.
Um, we don't really know what happened. Nobody's saying anything. It sounds like it was kind of there was misbehavior and misconduct on both sides. But, and, if I had to pick one side of the argument, I hate to say it, but I have to agree with him because all of his interviews have been kind of more honest about what the movie's going to be, and clearly that he did a lot of research into real life experiences on this. And she just wants to talk about flowery dresses and hair, and that sets a different distaste to me. It's very disingenuous, and it reeks very much of she wanted her and Ryan Reynolds movies to come out this summer and be kind of like Barbieheimer from last
Mhm.
year, but
Yeah.
she forgot which one would be the Barbie and which one would be the Oppenheimer. Her movie
Right.
should be the Oppenheimer, and she got it all twisted. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. It makes sense. Carrie.
I only know about this from a significant distance. And so it's what's funny to me is not knowing anything about what this rift between those two is supposed to be. It's like when any like TMZ or anyone shows it, I'm like, um, what am I supposed to be looking for? Because I mean, obviously, all of these disagreements don't have to be shouting matches. They don't have to be anyone screaming at each other or being pulled apart. But I'm like, sure, they may have had foundational disagreements about what this was going to be. But I guess the question is how did that impact the final product? And I don't know how it did, other than it's generating interest for a movie, to be quite honest, that I knew nothing about. So I'm not saying that's why they did it. I'm just saying I know more about this apparent rift between those two than I would ever know about the movie itself without it, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's drummed up a lot of discussion around the film, and I've not seen it. I read the book. I read the book before I knew what it was about. So, similarly, if anybody's watching the movie, having seen them kind of dance around the issues of it being about domestic violence, they may have had a similar experience where like I read it not knowing anything. I was just like, everybody's talking about this. I'm going to bite the bullet. Like, I know, like, Twitter thinks it's trash and TikTok thinks it's great. So I'm going to read whatever. And I was genuinely surprised. Like, I read it not actually knowing what the title was talking about. It was, in hindsight, a bizarre experience. And I suppose you could have that experience watching the movie. I haven't seen the movie, but I suppose that's possible as well. I I'm guessing this is a case of just creative differences. He wanted something a little bit more serious and stoic, and she wanted something celebratory. The movie has a happy ending. It is about domestic, or the book does. I don't know what the movie has, but it has a happy ending. The book is about domestic violence, but it ends, with the individuals involved getting out safely, getting out concretely, still, having love and light and laughter and happiness and all of that in their life. And I could see how you would have a creative difference over whether you want this to be an incredibly like serious, difficult watch stoic thing, or whether you want there to be elements of like celebration and flowers and whatever. I could see both sides. It's pretty clear which of them had which side on that. I will say I knew nothing about Justin Baldoni prior to this, and I did find out that he has a proposal video publicly. I believe it's on his Instagram. It's over 20 minutes long, and it's just him excruciatingly performing songs to the woman he's proposing to in a way that leads me to believe he quite enjoys the spotlight. And I, that plus the fact that he hired Johnny Depp's PR team does make me not inclined to default side with him.
Here,
We'll see.
Yeah.
Anyways, just curious on your thoughts.
here's what I would sort of my thought as we were talking about this, right? Taking these two particular entities out of it, right? But when there is a disagreement between a producer and star and director and perhaps writer or whatever the case may be, like who gets the final, just generally, who gets the final call? Who gets to say, no, this is what this needs to be? Is it the producer or is it the director? My guess is probably the producer, right?
Hmm. That's a good point. I don't actually know the answer. I heard some like one of those like I read a tweet about a New Yorker article type of thing. I heard there were like two cuts to the movie, and the studio picked which one, and they picked Justin. So the final movie we're seeing reflects more his creative direction, but the PR is more focused on Blake Lively as she's a more popular name. So the PR might be more focused her direction. That may or may not be true. That's all hearsay. I'm very happy to indulge in hearsay, however, as evidenced by this conversation. And I was just really curious if you had thoughts on the matter. Stormy in the chat has some thoughts. She said having so many people come after Blake feels a little gross to me. I think they're both probably guilty of not behaving that great to each other. That feels true.
Yeah.
Justin also has a podcast where the female co-host has distanced herself from him. Justin bought the rights to the book and put himself as the director. Yeah, I guess it's worth noting, like, everybody in the cast, not just Blake, has like unfollowed and distanced themselves from him. And I don't want to give credit to a man, but I'm going to say it was a male podcast host who pointed something out. He said when it comes to Barbie, Kate, you made that comparison with like Barbenheimer in this, which a lot of people kind of made that connection. And I think you're exactly right that she and Ryan probably were trying for a Barbenheimer that like didn't happen. Like that's not organic. But when it comes to Barbie, there was really never any serious talk of having a male director because that's such a like female-centric story and journey that you just wouldn't have a man directing Barbie. It's theoretically possible, but that went to Greta Gerwig. And the fact that Justin like bought the rights, cast himself as like the lead guy, which is, sorry, spoilers, the abuser, but he cast himself as the lead guy, and also he bought the rights, he's the director, and he cast himself as the lead. That's a passion project, so hats off to him, but also the male podcast host, this is not my original thought, but I'll credit him. It seems like if somebody was truly like the ally to end all allies, they'd be like, this book written about a woman featuring a woman on a fairly female specific interest is maybe not the case of a need for a male director. So there's that too. But what do I know? I'm just here to, by default, take the woman's side because I am a misandrist. So, moving quickly along to what else we watched / read this week. Kate and Carey, I will toss it to you both. I know this was the summer of movies, and you both watched some pretty big blockbuster movies recently. You can decide who goes first on pitching your movies to me because I have not seen either of the two movies that you guys are going to be talking about.
Okay. All right, I can go first. So I watched Twisters. It is the follow-up to the 90s movie Twister. Never saw the first one. I'm glad I didn't need to. It is kind of what you expect. It's a lot of them chasing tornadoes, but it's surprisingly well done, and that's coming from somebody who doesn't tend to love, blockbuster action movies. So, take that as the glowing praise, if you will. It follows a young woman played by Daisy Edgar Jones named Kate. And let me just tell you, if I was confused about how I felt about Glenn Powell, him saying my name for 2 hours, I was like, I am uninterested. I don't really care for you. Okay, cool. If there was anything to have persuaded me to like Glenn Powell, that really should have been it, and it just didn't work.
It's so funny because outside of the spectrum of him being an actor, I would have presumed Glenn Powell to be like loosely your type ? But what do I know?
Interesting. No. No, sadly, my type, if we're just going appearance alone, in that movie plays the absolute worst character in that movie.
Aren't villains always the hottest though? That's fine.
They suck.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine. It'll be okay. But anyway, so the movie. Hmm?
I said walk it off.
Yeah, I'll walk it off. Yeah. So the movie was actually really good from a person who enjoys science, has some interest in meteorology, but by no means an expert. It made some amount of sense. There were some funny gimmicks, but that's how it happens. I think it was well enough done. I will say the main criticism that I did see was a lot of the acting was just kind of meh. And
Hmm.
as somebody who likes Stacey Edgar Jones, that was kind of disappointing. But I have to agree, I think she is a more drama, more intimate actress.
Yeah.
And, um, this is a big action movie, so she doesn't have a lot of time to flex that muscle. When those scenes did come up, she killed them. But, the big chase scenes and stuff like that, I was like, give me a little more, girl. A little more fear, a little something. I don't know. But overall, I had a great time. So, if you're looking for a decent to actually pretty good action movie, I would suggest that one.
I have
Yes.
a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you taking questions? Okay, great. So, the number one discourse that I saw around the movie Twisters was the fact that, like, I get it's not a romance technically, but like everything's a romance to me, whatever. Was that
Hmm.
in the romance, there was like absolutely no like physical anything, and there was literally no kiss in the entire movie. A movie that, frankly, based on the marketing, I perceived as like kind of loosely a romance with like the backdrop of tornadoes. So, how did you feel about the fact that there was no kissing? And am I way off base on like seeing romance as a heavy element in this movie?
So I'm gonna have kind of a interesting opinion based on previous experience, based like
Okay.
on my old opinions. I'm glad there was no kiss. There
Okay.
apparently they filmed a kiss,
Yeah.
and then Steven Spielberg, I think, was the one who saw it and told them to remove the kiss. And I agree with him because basically throughout the entire movie, you do have Glenn Powell's character very clearly interested in Kate and her just being like, yeah, farm boy, drive the truck. So she's not really interested in him. You get the sense that she gains a level of professional and academic respect for him, and
Mhm.
that they could be friends, and eventually a romance could form because of his very clear interest in her. But she's going through a lot, and very clearly her opinion throughout most of the movie is, you're in my way, shut up, or, oh, I see you, I respect you, now we're going to work together, we're running from a tornado. If they were to do anything romantically with her and have that kiss, we would have had to have a lot of changes in her character for it to have made sense.
Yeah.
Because then it would have been like this awkward kiss scene that made no sense, and it was just because he clearly was into her and she was there.
Yeah.
Um, that would have read really weird.
You know what? That's the first time I've heard like a counter argument that's anti-kiss that like makes sense. Sort of the
Hmm.
mindset of like, if she wasn't into him really this entire time, it's fine if she's starting to warm up to him, but she doesn't like owe him like kiss or some kind of gratification at the end. Like, she could just have professional respect. You know what? I like that. Okay, never mind. Women in STEM. Carrie, any thoughts or questions?
Well, one thought and then maybe one question. I guess my thought would be that Rogue One was the perfect movie that said we
Mhm.
don't need a freaking stinking kiss at the end of this because it makes no sense. And if they had, spoiler alert, I think you would have heard a collective groans because it would have made no sense, right? So that story, that movie didn't need that. Um, Conversely, The Rise of Skywalker, um, that movie had a number of problems. The relationship they tried to tag on there at the end, out of place, wasn't needed, probably turned a lot of people off. So that's my thoughts on like whether a story needs like that relationship moment or not. Um, um, Full disclosure, I've never seen the movie Twister,
Same.
so I'm familiar with the pop culture of it all, but I'm just wondering, was there a distinct level or difference between the CGI that was used in the first film comparative to what we see here? Did you walk out of there saying that was freaking incredible, or did you walk out saying, okay, that was fine?
I mean, I didn't see the first one, so I don't have a point of reference for that. But this one, I thought it did really well. There were definitely moments where that I could definitely see where that was CGI, but overall, I thought it was done very well. It didn't take me out, especially to the level of like a superhero movie would take me out of the experience.
Mm. I
Yeah.
will say, Stormy in the chat mentions that this was actually the first full movie that she's seen featuring Mr. Glenn Powell, and she finds him very hot. So, Kate, do not worry. You are not obligated to be on the Glenn Powell train. Stormy has that covered. He's all yours, Stormy.
Yeah.
Well, continuing the summer of movies, we started with a bit of a question regarding, the It Ends With Us, saga with Blake and Justin, and obviously Blake Lively's husband, as they have frequently pointed out in many interviews, has a movie out right now, a bit of a blockbuster itself, Deadpool and Wolverine. And here to report on that, as it were, is Carey. So, Carey, what are your thoughts? Is Deadpool and Wolverine the Barbie in this Barbenheimer? Is it good? Should we watch it? Does it do what it set out to do?
First of all, it is a great movie. Um, and the best thing about it is that I do think there are elements of it being a Barbie movie, and there are elements of it being an Oppenheimer movie, right?
Okay.
What I really liked about the movie is it had this sort of reputation and expectation that it was going to be this multiverse hopping um, MCU recalibrating movie. Um, and in a lot of ways, it was not. It was smaller than that, right? Because I think what happens, you look at like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, right? When you, I think when you deal with quote unquote multiverses and that sort of thing, it sort of takes people out of an experience because the question is, well, does it really matter? How big is this moment? Does it matter? Um, do the people that we're dealing with, do they matter that much, right? I think Deadpool and Wolverine, to its title, was a much more intimate movie than probably most people expected. Um, and I think what has happened in Deadpool movies is that we're always going to get the sort of crass humor and language and all of those sorts of things. But the movie always finds a way to add heart to those movies. Um, if you ask me, the first two, well, particularly the first Deadpool movie, was a love story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Considerably. And so this movie was sort of like the midlife crisis of Deadpool. Like, what does it all mean? How do I matter? How can I matter? And
Mm-hmm.
so, sort of having to try to figure that out um, based on what most people expect from his character. Um, I think it was an opportunity to sort of explore what makes him tick a little bit more, what matters to him, and so we got to go on that journey. And as much as people laughed at some of the things that happened in this movie, there was a lot of significant heart and touching moments in it as well. I mean, Hugh Jackman has been playing Wolverine for what, since forever. I
Right.
don't know that. Yeah, and after Logan the thought was, what more could he bring to this character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he brought everything and more. Because I mean, after Logan, it was like, well, what can he bring out? What is there left to explore? And obviously, he's not playing the same character, playing a variation of it, but there's still so much to explore with him and his portrayal of Logan and Wolverine, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, the only I guess we're beyond spoiling. What I do like about the
Spoilers are
number of
totally
cameo,
fine.
well, yeah, what I do like about the cameos that they had in the movie, was that they weren't quote unquote just fan service moments. Sure, obviously the cameos, some of the people that they brought back, yeah, there's going to be that sort of element in the theater where people were really, really happy to see them, but they sort of told a story and helped sort of complete stories for the people that they brought back. It wasn't, hey, we just brought you in here and hey, look at you, and then they're gone. They played a critical role in the story, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
The o- the only thing that sort of disappointed me, and it's like I know you can't do everything, is that the characters that we have come to know in the first two Deadpool movies essentially got short shrift here because you can't just I mean, I don't want to say it's like two different movies, but it's like it would have been incredibly difficult to give the initial characters the screen time and room that they needed to tell the story that they needed to tell. So, if there is one thing that sort of disappointed me is that the people and characters that I really had come to appreciate in the first two movies sort of got sidelined significantly in this one.
Hmm.
But if you're going to sideline those characters and give us more Hugh Jackman and Wolverine, um, and some of the cameos that they brought, I mean that's sort of the trade-off that you have to make. I mean, and it's freaking the highest grossing R-rated film of all time, if I'm not mistaken. Sure, there's inflation that accounts for that, but
But
that's a pretty
still,
good sign. Yeah, that's
that's
a pretty good sign of a pretty good movie. Um, so
You have some
I would,
agreement right off the bat in the chat. Stormy points out that Deadpool and Wolverine came out on her birthday and she loved it. She says Ryan and Hugh are just perfection in these roles. First of all, happy birthday, Stormy. Wow, that is
Thanks.
exciting. This movie was released specifically for your birthday. It's canon. So you mentioned that some elements, specifically side characters or side plots that were kind of integral in the first two Deadpool movies, you feel were sidelined here or missing here in order to bring in Wolverine. Do you feel like the universe of Deadpool, the irreverence, the comedy, the jokes, all of that was still present, or do you feel like that had to be toned down in order to allow for,
no, no,
I guess, as
it
an
had to be.
outsider, what I perceived to be like this very like serious character?
Oh no, it was it was amped up. It was definitely a Deadpool experience with
Okay.
Wolverine. And so it's just that like I was talking about sort of the midlife crisis without giving too much of the plot away. It's sort
Mhm.
of like there's a relationship that's sort of been key to Deadpool all this time. And
Mhm.
quite frankly, even in the second one, it was sort of shelved. It was his motivation, but their time together was sort of shelved, right? Because it's like now I have to go and do this thing because I've lost this person. And so to that extent, it was sort of the same thing in Deadpool and Wolverine. And so that's where I feel like it might have been. I feel like maybe in a director's cut or something. I don't know. There might have been a scene or two that they could have put in there that sort of fleshed that out a little bit more. Um, but it's also sort of the Marvel way in how they deal with relationships. Let's look at like Thor and Jane. I mean,
Yeah.
they're sort of like a partnership if it and when it matters to the plot, right?
Hmm.
Otherwise, no one really talks about it.
Right.
Um, Sort of the same thing with like Tony and Pepper. It's like, yeah, we'll talk about this relationship in the context of what it means for Tony Stark, but in the greater scheme of things, we're not going to slow the story down really to sort of explore that probably as much as is necessary, which is only a shame because I think the first movie, like I said, was a love story,
Hmm.
and they really established themselves um, and what their relationship was about. I just think, and particularly in the second one, they dropped the ball there, and I think in this third one, it sort of felt like it was on the periphery also.
Yeah. I'm still
But
really
that's a minor quibble, very minor quibble though.
I'm still really excited to watch it. I'm always excited to watch anything in the Deadpool universe. I just haven't got to it yet, same as I haven't got to Twisters yet. But it is really reassuring to hear that like it still does feel like a Deadpool movie, not like Deadpool is almost like a cameo in a
Yeah.
yet another Avengers style mashup, as it were.
No. And they sort of do play with that a little bit in terms of what his motivations are. And so but no, this is not what that is. And like I said, it has some cameos in it, probably that most people, when they go to the movies, expect it and anticipate it. But there were
Right.
some in there that were like, holy freaking crap, I can't believe this is who they got to come in to do this. So that's pretty freaking cool.
I'm very excited. I will see it very soon. Well, I will tell you what I have been watching. In the meantime. And I'll start with a movie since we were on kind of our little movie summer of movies train. And that is a movie recommendation from Carey last time. He recommended Young Woman in the Sea, and it was a really good pitch. And I was like, no, that has to go on my list. And I did not have Disney Plus activated, but I like couldn't get it out of my head. So finally, I reactivated Disney Plus, watched Young Woman in the Sea. I also reactivated it so I could rewatch Loki in advance of Dragon Con, but I reactivated it, watched Young Woman in the Sea. Worth every second. That was fantastic. I loved that movie. I loved the soundtrack. I loved the acting. I loved the setting. I loved the kind of twist on the typical plot beats for a like sports success movie. It was so good. Highly recommend as well. All the same things Carrie said and more. I believe that was your Woman of the Week last time we talked. And while I did pick a Woman of the Week this week, I just echo that. That was a fantastic movie. I
Let
will
me ask
also,
you this question, if I
yes, go
can.
ahead.
So again, without spoiling anything for anyone who didn't see it, I'm going to ask if that scene there at the end was that as like anxiety inducing and trauma inducing for you as it because again, as someone who doesn't know how to swim, right? It's like there are these moments of panic that would happen to anyone, whether they
Mm-hmm.
could swim or not, when you sort of realize this could be it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this rush of dread. I'm like, I know what this is, but it still was so good and so well done that I was still like, holy freaking crap. It really there was this emotional pull that it got me. And it was shocking and surprising that it did.
Yeah. It was like an element of tapping into a very specific fear. And again, this is like a sports success plot line with like a lot of twists and it's just very elevated in its own way. But in a sports success plot line, you don't generally have the literal fear of death, right? And in this, you do, and you do in a very meaningful way. And it taps into not just the fear of dying, but very specifically, like it's a very elemental. They through the camera work and the sound and the immersion, pun intended, of the environment, you feel those feelings of like the idea of being lost in the dark, in water, the potential of drowning, the potential of running out of energy to keep yourself afloat. It's very, I'll stick with the term immersive just because it's also a pun. They do such a good job with it, but without it being like jump scares, horror, gore, like none of that. Like um, it's still very human. It's not like it's opposing or putting off the viewer. I loved it. Can't recommend it highly enough. Kate, if you haven't seen it, you would love it too. If you've got Disney Plus up, I know we're all about to have Hulu back up, which is like apparently in the Disney family. I don't know. I learn new things every time I relog in, but we're all about to have Hulu back up because we're all about to be watching Only Murders in the Building. So excited. So a rewatch I've been doing on Disney Plus is Loki, which I watched when season 2 dropped, if memory serves, but it's been like 5 billion years. So just like a refresher on that before Dragon Con, because we'll be talking about it a bit there. I I'm really excited about that. That has been going well, and I won't like get into all of the nitty gritty of it since obviously that came out a long time ago, but that's been fun, and also just gives me credibility that I'm watching something other than reality television. But I also have been watching reality television, and that includes like everybody else in the world. Love Island US season 6, the season that went viral. These are basically A-listers at this point. I know you guys do not like reality television. However, if you do decide to watch like a season of like mindless reality television, Love Island season 6 US, it went viral for a reason. It's charming, stupid, pretty people, but also funny. It was cast so well. There's female friendships. There's people crying and screaming and throwing things. It's just, what more could you want? I loved it. Somehow, some way, all of America loved it as well. Love Island UK was always way more popular than Love Island US, but they really did their big one with Love Island US season 6, and it was so good. The reunion just came out 2 days ago. And that also was everything you could hope and dream of when it comes to trash reality television. I'm also, shout out to the UK and switch shows and sides on this as well, watching Love Island or Love is Blind UK. So Love is Blind US has always been quite popular as one of the Netflix shows. It's one of those ones that I like, you two know I go hard in the paint for Married at First Sight, but then like every other reality TV show, I'm like, well, obviously they're not going to stay together, so this is stupid. And somehow Love is Blind, but like I'll watch it anyways because for my entertainment, but not for their edification by any means. Love is Blind sits somewhere in the middle. It's like this could like if like good people went on it, this could actually work. It's just like everybody that goes on it is awful. Love Island or Love is Blind UK edition just dropped. In fact, I believe like at 2 a.m. last night, the final 2 episodes dropped, which I haven't finished seeing yet, but that's like the end of the weddings, like spoilers. And that has been just so fun because like I don't want to speak too soon, and I'm sure I'm wrong, you guys, but like I think there's like a couple good people on it actually. Like there's some people who are there's some bad people too. That's where the entertainment lies. But I think there's a couple like good people who will like actually get married and like actually like each other. Crazy. Anyways, can't recommend that highly enough as well. And then something I'm super late to the party on, but I'm about to start marathoning is the TV show Wentworth, which is on Netflix. It's like Orange is the New Black, but like Australian question mark. I watched like the first 2 episodes and I was sold. So that's everything I've watched this week. And now it is time for really the most wonderful time of the episode, Woman of the Week. Kate, you started on the What Else We Watched This Week segment. So, Carey, I will give you the honors of kicking off Woman of the Week.
All right. My woman of the week is sort of in the vein of like William Hung. It's like you remember him not because of his fantastic talent, you remember him because of how fantastically terrible he was at a certain skill and he
Uh-huh.
didn't care. So if you remember, breakdancing
Oh, we
uh,
do.
made made its inaugural appearance at the Summer Olympics in Paris. Um, it is not, unfortunately, um, going to be a part of the 2028 Olympics in LA, which I think
Right.
is a travesty, but that's neither here nor there. Um, but there is an Australian performer. Her name is Rachel Gunn. She's apparently a lecturer at some university who's pretty significant in terms of what she teaches, like movement and social stuff, which is fine and fantastic. And the problem is when she was performing at the Olympics, you can call it breakdancing if you want to, but it probably best resembled an SNL parody of like what breakdancing at the Olympics from a middle-aged white woman would be, right? You
100%.
could just yeah, you could just imagine that parody going on with like some real significant like breakdancers from like New York and New Jersey standing around like looking like, what the holy heck is this?
Mm-hmm.
And all I can say is the reason that she is my woman of the week is this. Again, there were some qualifying things that she had to do to get there. So it's not like she was totally inept. I've seen some clips where she actually is, I don't want to say really, really good, but decent enough to sort of pass if like somebody was having a house party and they said, let's break dance, and she started break dancing, nobody's going to be like, get the heck out of here, right?
Okay, yeah.
So there was some vetting that she had to go through. There were some things that she had to do to qualify. But the reason she's my woman of the week is because she pulled off a freaking incredible hustle. Um, she got she got the government
Mm-hmm.
to foot her cost to go to the freaking Olympic Games in Paris.
Literally.
Um, she, yes, she got her 15 minutes of fame, which is like bordering on 20 or 30 minutes of fame. And
Uh-huh.
here's the other part about it, right? If she'd gotten up there and was just sort of like decent at breakdancing, nobody remembers her. But the fact that she was incredibly epically terrible is that no one will ever forget her. B girl, Ray Gunn, Rachel Gunn is my woman of the week.
I That was the best pitch for one of the week I've ever heard in my entire life. I could not agree with you more. Like complete like hats off to her. The way her hat came off when she was pretending to spin upside down. Hats off to her for pulling off such a fantastic heist to get herself as an Olympian to Paris and then stand on that stage and do what a 6-year-old does when they're like, look, watch me do this. Like
A
she has a level of fortitude I could never. But I support women's rights, but mostly women's wrongs, and I agree with you completely. Um, my woman of the week. Okay, so I'm not going to give one specific woman of the week because you guys might remember, I certainly remember because I'm traumatized that I gave as my woman of the week a few weeks back a particular woman on Jeopardy who had like won like multiple days in a row. It was so cool. I think her name was Victoria, whatever. She was great. And I was like, and she could like break a record if she wins tonight. She's playing as we speak. And then she like lost while we spoke. Anyways, so I'm not going to give one specific woman or one specific team or one specific whatever. I'm just going to like give a little replug for the WNBA. I'm like really on board with WNBA. Can I play basketball? No. Do I know much about basketball? Also, no. Have I been getting so much enjoyment from WNBA? Yes, absolutely. There is even a game that's starting like 30 minutes after this, which I'm highly invested in one team winning and one team losing. XOXO, watch WNBA. Can't recommend highly enough. Couldn't tell you the first thing about basketball. Kate, I'll toss it to you.
Okay. I mean, in that vein, I'll just quickly mention, but in the vein of, not saying names to not jinx anything, the specific basketball player that you said reminds you of me.
Yes, her.
I now get videos suggested to me about her all the time. I don't,
You look
anyway,
so much like her. You
is
look
it that I
more like
look
that
like
girl from
her?
Euphoria. What now?
Is it that I look like her or that I'm tall with brown hair?
Oh, she's no. You're like average height, unless you want to be tall, in which case you're tall.
I mean,
She's tall,
yeah, she's taller than me. I'm like average tall.
right?
I'm taller than you. But
Well, most people are. Most
oh
people
yeah.
meet me if people know me from online, they meet me IRL and they're like visibly disappointed at how short I am because I think I have like tall, like dominant energy online, and they're like, "Oh no, okay,
Hmm.
yeah, you are in
Yeah.
fact a half Arab woman." Yes, I am. No, she looks so much like you. Go on, Kate.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, so the woman of the week I'm gonna pick is, back from the Olympics. I didn't watch a ton of it, but I got served up good amount of clips, probably more than any other Olympics, and I was kind of invested in the rugby game. And the rugby game, the person I would mention just as the winning goal for us to get bronze was an amazing run. And then Alona Mar, who I'm sure you both have heard about at this point,
Oh
having a
yes.
fantastic social media for so many reasons. But kind of the surprise fan for me is Sam Sullivan.
Okay.
So she was also on the team, and she was my favorite person to follow through the Olympics because she just wanted to do Legos the entire time.
Oh my god,
Then
legend.
had to leave the Olympics early, didn't say why. Like she'd already finished her stuff and just left some of the last minute celebrations. Went and got secretly married and is now partnering with the Olympics, or not the Olympics, sorry, Lego, with another Instagram creator who her whole page is about aerospace engineering, and they're going to be doing a Women in STEM event thing with Legos. I That is the trifecta of getting Kate interested.
There's so many things in that story that I loved. Women's rugby, secret marriages, Legos, and women in STEM.
Hmm.
Like you couldn't script this IRL. Wow.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
both
yeah.
have really, really good women of the week. I mean, like every woman is fantastic, but I just want to you really came strong this week, both of you.
Thank you.
I will leave us with one last question because it has popped up in the chat since we talked about I think Marvel quite a lot this episode. Well, I'll pause and give Stormy's Woman of the Week. Her Woman of the Week is Algerian Olympic boxer who is suing J.K. Rowling, Elon Musk, and several other folks who made a bunch of essentially misogynistic comments about her. Apparently, looking or presenting as male due to whatever medical conditions going on. She was fantastic. I believe she won gold, and she was recently on the cover of Algerian Vogue. I'm elaborating on Stormy's thing because I've also followed the story, Stormy. It was a very it was actually a very complex and interesting situation, but the folks attacking her, that was not complex, nor was that interesting. That was just uninformed hate towards a woman, and I fully echo your Woman of the Week, Stormy. What a fantastic submission. I'll leave you with a question. We'll see if you've got any quick thoughts on it. Stormy asks, what do you all think of Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doom?
Do you want me to go first?
Please.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Um,
Cheers.
Here's the thing, right? He, I know why people are going to have a question about it because they're going to say, can't we just let this guy go? He's been like part of the MCU since the very beginning. But here's the thing about like Marvel and the MCU that I think people are sort of forgetting about, right? There was a time when you could get by with just sort of like, quote unquote, making good content, and that was enough. I don't think that is enough anymore, right? And I'm also thinking about who could they have cast as Victor Von Doom that was going to create as much interest and buzz as RDJ. And we trust RDJ to do a good job. We trust the Russo brothers to pull off like these things. I don't see any sort of downside to it. I think it creates significant interest and buzz, and it puts Marvel back at the forefront. So I dig it. Absolutely.
I will say I think it's a very Marvel move, and Marvel moves are successful. They do numbers, they create box office, hits. Um, is it the riskiest thing in the world? No. Is it going to work? Yes. Am I going to probably like it when I watch it? Yes. But would DC have done this? No. Would DC have done something worse? 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
Would DC have done something better? Also 50-50 chance.
I think I can round out the spectrum of, I'm not mad about it by any means, but it's also kind of a leap to call me a massive Marvel fan because this is a Marvel move and so this is expected.
You are a
if people are,
selective Marvel fan. You've got
yes,
one specific interest in the
I
pot.
have one thing and I could, yeah. Um, I if fans are excited about it and fans that love Marvel are excited about it, more power to them. I think there is something about it to me that would like I have hope. I want it to work out. I really do.
Mhm.
I just because of my own taste and I know the things that would bother me, I have a feeling that this is going to play out as a less than explained or contextualized fan service. And
Mhm.
sometimes those moves works out great, sometimes they don't. And if it does work out great, more power to them. I'm excited for them, and it probably will do numbers that are probably dipping a little bit for Marvel. So I get why they made this move, but at the same time, on a level of I'm constantly criticizing things for was this the smartest writing choice? Um, I but I'm also not gonna say I'm not gonna like say you're wrong or say something like it's not a good choice because it's not my thing. So, I'm glad that people are excited about it. I'm glad that it's created this buzz. And really, other than the fan service element and maybe concerning about the quality of writing, I have no issue with it. And I've seen a lot of people kind of be pretty excited about it. So I'm happy that everybody's excited.
Absolutely. Could not have summarized that better myself. And that takes us to a perfect ending point. However, if you want to talk with any of us about anything that we mentioned, which it warms my heart every time I see somebody talking with any of us about stuff, even if it's sad news like the cancellation of Lady um, Jane Grey or whatever the case may be. You can find Carey and Kate's information in the description down below. And great news, guys. Great news, guys. By the time we talk again, we will be talking about Only Murders in the Building. I'm so excited. We will see you all on September 11th to talk about the first 4 episodes of Only Murders in the Building. See you then.
Can't wait.
Bye.